perspective, where we have such a relationship with Mexico, the United States, and Canada, in ensuring that we have security here in the North American continent. When we look at the issues relating to crime and the violence that we see on both sides of the border, this issue of how we deal with arms trafficking becomes very, very important in the context of national security. I want to acknowledge the leadership and attention that has been given to this issue by the Department of Justice under the leadership of Attorney General Merrick Garland and Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco. They have walked the talk in terms of their presence in Mexico, in meetings with the President of Mexico and all the security agencies multiple times. I also want to acknowledge the great work of the Department of Homeland Security and Secretary Mayorkas and Deputy Secretary John Tin, HSI, the Border Patrol, and all the different elements of DHS that are helping us on this fight. And also, particularly want to say thank you to Steve Dettelbach and to the ATF. The tools that the ATF has are now being used in a way where, in coordination with the whole of government effort that we have underway, we believe that we can make an impact on arms flowing south into Mexico. Perhaps the most important thing about this gathering today here in Washington is that it is the first time in my history of working on these issues for a long time where we bring everybody together. If we're going to be successful, as our Deputy Attorney General just said, we need to have this united, comprehensive approach. Hence the 6 United States attorneys who do such a fabulous job, and we are so proud of prioritizing this issue. You know, we can make a difference because you already are doing it. Bringing in the interagency. So yes, bringing in the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, other agencies that are involved, such as INL and the State Department, but also the leadership of the White House through Liz Sherwood-Randall and the Homeland Security Advisor, who is leading much of this effort, along with Josh Geltzer, who's here today. That's what I call, as Lisa Monaco just said, a united, comprehensive approach. This is the first time in the history of this issue that we have this opportunity, hence the historicity of this convening today. I also want to say that this is an issue where Mexico is in the fight. We have been involved, are involved, work with the Mexican government closely. The perception sometimes that perhaps Mexico is not in the fight is wrong. The reality of it is that they are in the fight with us. If you look at what has happened just in terms of 2022, 403 police officers were killed. 403 police officers were killed in Mexico in 2022. Now, they are being killed by weapons, 60 to 70%, the majority of them coming from the United States of America and to Mexico. So they are in the fight with us. We, monitoring and always with the respect to the sovereignty of Mexico, seeing what happened in operations where we went after one of the most wanted, who had been in part, or who had led the effort in the murder of one of our DEA agents. Well, in that particular operation, 13 Marines were killed in an accident that happened after the operation was completed. In a more recent operation involving another leader of one of the most significant cartels in Mexico, more than 10 members of the Mexican Army and the National Guard were also killed. When we make those calls to the Secretary of Defense in Mexico, Luis Crescencio Sandoval, or to the Secretary of the Navy, Rafael Ojeda, we tell them we need to honor, as they are honoring, the lives of their soldiers and sailors, the members of the National Guard who are dying in this fight. And part of the way we honor their lives is by making sure that we're doing everything we can from a law enforcement point of view. That we're doing everything we can, first of all, to stop the flow of arms that come from the United States across the border into Mexico that are causing very significant violence in many communities in different places in Mexico. We need to make sure that we do everything we can to stop that flow to the south. Secondly, we need to do the right investigations with the right information that only we in the United States, through the resources you have in partnership with the Mexican government, can identify those who are committing these crimes. And because of the communities, the Safe Communities Bipartisan Act, which was signed, we have new tools. I say this in Mexico, and we say it here in the United States. If you're involved in arms trafficking, in this day, in 2023, we're going to find you, and you're going to pay for your crime. And the USAs who are here, along with the leadership of the departments who communicated the cases that are already happening. We have already 100 defendants that are being prosecuted under that law. The message should be loud and clear to firearms traffickers, as well as to the cartels who pay for these weapons, that we are going to go after you, and justice will be served. But the only way you do that is by continuing the work that you've done and to build on that work. And finally, I want to say that we're doing this in the context of a framework of a relationship that's built on a partnership with Mexico. We formed the Bicentennial Security Framework, which is attended by Attorney General Garland and Secretary Blinken and Secretary Mayorkas and many others. Now, about a year plus ago, we're leading to a reaffirmation and an accountability on what we have done in a meeting that will be a high-level security dialogue that will be held in October. We'll be able to report out on the successes that have happened since we started this effort. But because of this effort that is happening here today in Washington, D.C., at the offices at ATF, we're going to be able to report, in my view, even better results. And lastly, let me just say, I had the honor of being the Attorney General of Colorado for 6 years before I came to Washington to the Senate. And during that time, we were in the midst of reflecting on Homeland Security and seeing what had happened in 9/11 and the lessons that we had learned. One of the lessons that came out of 9/11 and the reports that were created by the commission that took a look at lessons learned from the event of 9/11 is that we needed to work together. We needed to share information. So even though I was a state attorney general, I was not a Fed like most of you who are in this room. I remember being a member of the Joint Terrorism Task Forces. I remember the sharing of information where you had FBI and ATF and HSI and all the USAs that were involved in all that, bringing the whole of government effort together. I just want to underscore that as we deal with this security issue that involves cartels that are well known to everybody, that are financed with their ill proceeds more than they ever have been, to be able to purchase the kinds of weapons that they're purchasing, that it calls for that kind of clear action on behalf of the United States government. And because of the direction that we have from the President of the United States, the direction that we have from the cabinet agencies, the direction that you've had from the speakers you've already heard from, and you'll hear from Josh in a minute, it's very clear what we got to do. We've done it in the past. We'll do it again. I look forward to having all of Mission Mexico, all of our agencies who are represented there on your behalf, making sure that we have a lasting impact on stemming the flow of arms from the United States into Mexico. Thank you very much.